Secrets have a way of coming to light, but I never thought it would happen like this. When I walked into my stepdad's room and caught him in the act, I froze, but I couldn't bring myself to stop watching. What happened next left us both stunned and changed everything. It all started in one evening. The house was quiet, too quiet. It felt strange without the usual noise, the hum of the television, the distant chatter from my mom and stepdad, and the sound of the dishwasher working its way through another load of dishes. Instead, all I could hear was the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards beneath my feet as I made my way into the living room. I had been home alone for a while, the absence of my mom and stepdad not bothering me as much as it should. They were out on one of their weekend getaways, leaving me with the house to myself. In some ways, it was a relief. I didn't have to pretend to be happy or engage in small talk with my stepdad, Sean, who I had always felt an odd distance from. It wasn't that he was mean or cruel, but there was something unsettling about him, something I couldn't put my finger on. I knew he loved my mom, that much was clear, and for the most part he had been decent to me. But that didn't change the fact that I always felt a sense of unease around him, especially in those quiet moments when it was just the two of us. Those moments when I wasn't sure if he was looking at me like a father figure or something else entirely. It was subtle, those little moments, like when our hands brushed in the kitchen, or when his gaze lingered a fraction too long on me. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself I was just imagining things, but deep down, something didn't feel right. But the real trouble started a few weeks ago. I couldn't pinpoint when exactly, but over time, I began to notice the little things, the lingering touches, the way his eyes would wander just a bit too long when I was around. It made me feel uncomfortable, like I was being watched in a way I couldn't escape from. At first, I tried to dismiss it. Maybe I was imagining things. After all, it was normal for a stepfather to be a little more affectionate with his stepdaughter than with a stranger. But as the weeks went by, the moments became harder to ignore. It wasn't until one evening, late at night, that everything changed. I had stayed up later than usual, sitting on the couch with a book in my lap. I wasn't tired, and I didn't feel like going to bed just yet. The house was still, except for the soft sounds of the wind rattling the window panes and the occasional car passing by outside. The dim light from the lamp by the door cast long shadows in the corners of the room, making the space feel empty. It was peaceful, in a way, until I heard the sound. A quiet shuffle of feet, a faint creak of the floorboards. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. My mom and Sean weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow, and there shouldn't have been anyone else in the house. But then I heard it again, a slow, deliberate movement, so soft it almost felt like the air itself was pressing against my skin. My stomach dropped. I turned my head, expecting to see my mom returning early, but instead there stood Sean in the doorway. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. My mind raced, trying to make sense of why he was standing there. For a moment, we just stared at each other, an unspoken tension hanging in the air. His eyes were intense, unreadable. The expression on his face seemed different. It wasn't the usual look of a concerned father figure or even a stepdad. It was something else, something foreign, and it made me feel exposed, vulnerable. I swallowed hard, trying to shake off the sudden sense of panic that rose in my chest. Hey, what's up? My voice came out quieter than I intended, but I couldn't help it. Something about the way he was standing there, just watching me, made me uneasy. My instinct was to tell him to go away, to put some distance between us, but for some reason my feet stayed rooted to the ground. Sean didn't answer right away. He just stood there in the doorway as if carefully measuring his next move. His presence felt heavy in the room. I glanced down at my book, trying to focus on the words, but my thoughts kept slipping away. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing there, watching me, waiting for something. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. Everything all right? His voice was low, almost too calm. The way he said it made it seem like he wasn't really asking about my well-being. It felt more like a question about something else entirely. The tone was soft, yet carried an undercurrent of something that made my skin prickle. I looked up, and our eyes locked for the briefest of moments. My stomach flipped, and I suddenly felt exposed. I didn't know what to say. Was I supposed to answer him? Did he know I'd been avoiding him? Yeah, I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. I shifted uncomfortably on the couch, trying to ignore the unease that was building up inside me. I'm fine, just reading. I tried to smile, but it felt forced, unnatural. Sean took a step closer. The air between us grew thicker, more suffocating. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there staring at me with a look that made my heart race. It was like he could see right through me, like he was waiting for me to crack, to reveal something I hadn't even known was there. I shifted again, my palms sweating as I tried to push the strange feeling aside. I started, but my words faltered. What was I supposed to say? My pulse was starting to race, my breath coming in shallow gasps. Something about the way he was looking at me made me feel like I was caught in a trap, but I didn't know what to do or how to get out of it. His gaze didn't leave me. It was so intense that it felt like it was pressing down on me, suffocating me. You sure? He asked again, his voice almost a whisper now. There was something unsettling in the way he said it, something that made me feel like I wasn't just his stepdaughter anymore. I wasn't sure what I was to him anymore. I nodded quickly, trying to shake the sensation off. Yeah, I'm fine. But the words felt hollow as soon as they left my mouth. The tension in the room had shifted, and now I wasn't so sure. The silence between us felt heavy, thick, like something was about to break. And then, as if everything had shifted in a single instant, he stepped closer. His hand reached out, brushing gently against my arm. The touch was light, but it burned into my skin. I froze, unable to move. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. His fingers lingered on my arm, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. It wasn't right. It couldn't be right. I had never seen him like this before. Never felt this kind of attention from him. His presence was overwhelming, like it was closing in around me, and for the first time, I realized that everything was different. Sean, I whispered, my voice trembling. The words felt like they had no power, like they were being swallowed by the thick air between us, but he didn't move. He didn't respond. His hand stayed on my arm, and I felt a jolt of panic rush through me, mingled with something I couldn't quite name. Desire? Confusion? I didn't know. I didn't understand it, but I couldn't deny that it was there. His eyes softened, but there was still something dark in them, something that made me feel small and exposed. He took another step closer, and suddenly it felt like there was no space between us at all. My heart raced, and I could hear the pounding of my pulse in my ears. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. And then, without warning, he spoke again, his voice low, barely above a whisper. I've been waiting for this moment. And in that instant, I didn't know my life would change forever. I could barely breathe. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as Sean's gaze bore down on me. My heart pounded in my chest, so loud I was sure he could hear it. I wanted to run, to get away, but my body wouldn't respond. It was as though I was frozen in place, my mind racing to make sense of what was happening. His hand still rested on my arm, sending an electric jolt through my skin. The touch wasn't rough or demanding, but it was possessive, like he was claiming something that wasn't his. I wanted to pull away, to shout for him to stop, but the words were trapped in my throat. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Don't be scared. Sean's voice was soft, almost comforting, but there was something behind it that made my blood run cold. I've always been here for you. You know that, right? His thumb gently stroked my arm, as if trying to reassure me, but the more he touched me, the more that sinking feeling in my stomach grew. I shook my head, still trying to make sense of what he was saying. It didn't make sense. It couldn't. Sean had been my stepfather for years, and we'd always had a normal, if distant, relationship. He wasn't supposed to be acting like this. He wasn't supposed to look at me like that. Why are you doing this? My voice came out barely above a whisper, barely even a sound. My mouth was dry, my body trembling as I fought to keep control. His eyes softened for a moment, and he took a step closer, closing the already small gap between us. He towered over me, his presence overwhelming. It felt like the walls of the room were closing in, like there was nowhere to escape. "You don't understand," he murmured. His voice was low, almost hypnotic. "But you will. You've always been special to me." His words felt like a blade to the chest, sharp and cutting, but there was no anger in his tone, just that same eerie calm, as if he truly believed everything he was saying. The confusion in my mind started to clear, replaced by something far worse. Fear. Fear that I was trapped. Fear that there was no way out of this situation. I wasn't just stuck in this room with him, I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making. Every part of me screamed to get out, to escape, but I was paralyzed, my mind spinning, unsure of what to do next. I opened my mouth to speak again, to demand an explanation, but the words died on my tongue. Something told me that if I said anything, it might make things worse. I couldn't find the strength to ask for help. I couldn't even get the words to leave my lips. My hands shook at my sides, and I could feel the tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. Sean was still watching me, that strange look in his eyes never wavering. It wasn't love, and it wasn't concern. It was something darker, something possessive, like I was an object for him to claim. He stepped forward again, his breath warm against my skin. "I know you're scared, Lily," he said, his voice softening. "But you don't need to be. I won't hurt you." His words should have been reassuring, but instead, they sent a cold chill through my body. The way he spoke, as if he thought he was entitled to my trust, made my skin crawl. I wanted to push him away, to scream for him to leave, but I was frozen in place. His grip on my arm tightened just slightly, and it felt like an unspoken warning that if I tried to move, I'd be met with resistance. "I won't hurt you," he repeated. His eyes locked on mine, and for a moment I almost believed him. Almost. His voice was soothing, almost like he was trying to lull me into a sense of calm. But I could see past the mask. I could feel the truth beneath it all, the truth that something was deeply wrong, that this wasn't a gesture of care or protection. It was controlled. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to face before. I wasn't just his stepdaughter anymore. I wasn't just a child to him. I had become something else in his eyes, something to be possessed, to be controlled. I took a step back, my legs shaking, my mind desperate to make sense of the situation. I need to go," I managed, my voice hoarse. "Please." The words felt weak, like they had no power behind them. I could barely meet his gaze as I took another step back, but Sean didn't move. His eyes followed me, unblinking, as though watching a prey animal inching away from its predator. The way he looked at me made me feel like I had no escape, like I was stuck in some twisted game I didn't understand. "You can't leave yet," he said quietly. "We need to talk. There are things we need to figure out." His voice was firm, yet it had an undertone of something far darker. I felt the pressure in my chest grow, the fear tightening its grip around my throat. I couldn't stay in that room any longer. My instincts screamed at me to run, to get away, but I couldn't move. The fear paralyzed me, and Sean's presence loomed over me like a suffocating cloud. Finally, I took a deep breath and managed to say the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. "I'm going to tell Mom." At that, Sean's expression shifted. His eyes darkened, and the air in the room seemed to freeze. "You won't tell her," he said, his voice low and cold. "Not unless you want to ruin everything." I felt the blood drain from my face. There was something chilling about the finality in his tone, the way he made it sound like I had no other choice. The weight of his words hung in the air like a sentence. "Lily," he said my name softly, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard him say it so quietly, like it was a secret, like it was something we shared. I didn't respond immediately, too lost in the overwhelming pull between us. My hands shook slightly as I picked up another document, trying to regain some semblance of control, but he was still there, standing beside me, his body close enough that I could feel the heat of it radiating toward me. "Would you ever tell your mother?" he asked, his voice now lower, almost a whisper. I won't," I stammered, my heart racing in my chest. But it wasn't a lie. I don't know why I did this at that moment when he did this to me. His fingers brushed mine again, this time slow and deliberate, sending a wave of heat straight to my core. My breath hitched, and I glanced up at him, only to find his eyes fixed on me, dark and intense. He wasn't looking at me like a boss anymore. He wasn't looking at me with that distant, professional gaze. No, his eyes were full of something else, something raw, something I couldn't ignore. Lily, he breathed my name again. This time it was a question, a plea, an invitation. Before I could respond, he moved closer, his body now pressed against mine. I could feel his breath on my skin, warm and steady. And I knew at that moment that the line we had been walking for so long was about to shatter. There was no more space between us now, no more pretending that nothing was happening, no more hiding behind professionalism or distance. His lips were on mine before I could say another word, and I kissed him back without thinking, without hesitation. The kiss was soft at first, gentle, as though we were both testing the waters. But then, as if something inside us both cracked open, it deepened, becoming desperate, urgent. My hands found their way to his chest, gripping the fabric of his shirt as I pulled him closer, feeling the hardness of his body against mine. The kiss deepened quickly, growing more urgent, more desperate, as if we were both starving for something we couldn't name. His hand slid to my face, guiding me closer, and I responded with a hunger of my own. I wanted this, I wanted him. It wasn't just the kiss, it was everything, the way he made me feel, the way he seemed to understand me without saying a word. My hands found their way to his back, my nails digging into his skin as if I needed to hold on to something to stop myself from losing control. The kiss grew more frantic, more desperate. I was drowning in him, in the heat of his body, the taste of his lips, the way he made me feel alive in a way I had never known. When we finally pulled apart, both of us gasping for breath, our foreheads stayed pressed together, our eyes locked in a moment of strange clarity. Everything else in the world seemed to fade away. "Lily," he whispered, his voice rough with desire. "Are you sure? Because once we go further, there's no turning back." The tension between us was unbearable, a sharp, painful ache. My heart was still racing, my mind spinning, but at that moment I knew there was no going back. No matter how much I tried to convince myself that I should stop, that this wasn't right, I knew that I had already made my choice. I nodded, just a small movement, but it was enough. Sean's breath hitched, and without hesitation, he kissed me again. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. It was raw, it was urgent, it was everything we had been avoiding for so long. His hands moved lower, his touch gentle but firm, as if he was giving me the choice to pull away, to stop him, but I didn't stop him. I couldn't. I did it with him. He did it to me. I cannot get into the details, but it was everything that you could imagine. Hungry, urgent, desperate, like we were both searching for something we had never known we needed. My body, my heart, everything inside me wanted this, even if I didn't understand why. "Lily," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll take responsibility. Don't worry, I've got you." I didn't have the words to say what I was feeling, but in that moment, his words were enough. I nodded again, barely able to breathe. "Don't worry," he repeated softly. "I'm here, and I'll take care of everything." And somehow at that moment I believed him. But this was just the beginning. Time passed in the blink of an eye. When I woke up, Sean wasn't beside me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of the world pressing down on my chest. The silence in the room felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in around me. My fingers still tingled where his touch had lingered, and I couldn't shake the warmth of his kiss. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out, but his face, his hands on me, the way he had kissed me, it kept replaying in my mind. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. This wasn't supposed to happen. He is my stepdad. How could I face my mom from now on? I should have pushed him away, told him it was wrong, but I didn't. I let it happen, and now I was here, alone in my room, drowning in confusion. But I was late. We had already done it. I was in my world when the sound of the door creaked open and my heart skipped a beat. Sean. His presence was enough to make everything inside me tighten with unease. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to look at him without feeling a mix of guilt and something else, something unsettlingly new. He stood there in the doorway, his eyes scanning the room, settling on me with an intensity that made my pulse race. "Hey," he said softly. "I didn't mean to make things awkward." My lips parted, but no words came out. I opened my mouth again, but still nothing. The only sound was the pounding of my heart, drowning out everything else. How was I supposed to react? What was I supposed to say to him? What just happened? Ethan took a step forward, and instinctively, I shrank back, feeling the space between us close in on me. I didn't mean to. He stopped himself, running a hand through his hair in that way he always did when he was unsure of something. He seemed uncertain, too. Sean, I trailed off. How could I explain this to him when I couldn't even make sense of it myself? I didn't even know what this was. I just don't know how to deal with this, I finally muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. What happened? I wasn't expecting it. My throat tightened as I said the words, as if they were suddenly real. He stood there, his eyes flicking between me and the ground, his posture stiff and uncomfortable. It was like he didn't know whether to step forward or retreat. I didn't either, he admitted quietly. His voice had dropped to that low, husky tone, the one that always made my skin flush. He looked at me then, his gaze more intense than before. But, Lily, I can't pretend like nothing happened. It wasn't just some mistake to me. It felt real. Did it feel real to you? I swallowed hard, feeling the heat creep up my neck. God, how could he say something like that? How could I respond to that? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I was rambling now, but I couldn't stop. My head was spinning, my heart in my throat. You're my brother. This is wrong. His gaze softened, but there was something else behind it. You're not just my stepdaughter, Lily, he said, his voice gentle but firm. We're more than that, and maybe it doesn't have to be wrong. Maybe we can figure this out. I felt like I was drowning. How can we figure this out? His words didn't make sense, but they did. I wanted to push him away. I should push him away, but there was this pull between us, something neither of us had ever acknowledged before, and now it was impossible to ignore. You think it's not wrong? I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. You're not just saying that because of what happened, are you? Sean shook his head slowly, stepping closer to me. He took a deep breath before speaking again, his voice steady. I don't know, but I can't just pretend it didn't happen, and neither can you. You're feeling this too, Lily. I can see it in your eyes. I turned my face away, but his words pierced through me, echoing in my head. I am feeling it. I can't deny it. The tension between us was electric, and no matter how much I wanted to deny it, I was drawn to him. I don't know what I said, my voice shaky. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. I wasn't prepared for any of this. You don't have to be prepared, Sean said softly, his voice almost a whisper. You just have to be honest with yourself. I could feel his breath against my skin now, his presence overwhelming, and for the briefest moment, I wondered if this was all just some kind of dream, something I could wake up from. But no, this was real, and this was happening. My heart raced, my thoughts scattered, and before I could stop myself, I reached for him. The kiss was soft at first, unsure, testing the waters, but the moment our lips met, the world outside the room seemed to disappear. The heat, the urgency, it all flooded in, sweeping us both into something we couldn't control. When we finally pulled back, breathless and confused, I looked into his eyes. There was no going back now. Everything had changed. But was it for the better? We can't just pretend this didn't happen, he whispered, his voice raw. I nodded, still unsure of where this path would lead, but in that moment all I could do was acknowledge the truth between us, even if it was a truth I wasn't ready to face. He came close again, then his lips found mine. The kiss lingered, my heart pounding in my chest. I pulled away slowly, unsure of what to say. The silence between us was thick with unspoken questions. Lily. His voice was low, urgent. What happened wasn't a mistake, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't matter. I turned away slightly, my voice shaking. I don't know what we're doing. This isn't right. He stepped closer, his presence reassuring. Listen, I'll take responsibility for everything. I'm not going to leave you alone in this. We'll figure this out. Together. His words sank in. Take responsibility? I couldn't process it, but a part of me found comfort in his assurance. I'll take care of you, he said softly. Don't worry about it. I nodded, still unsure, but feeling something inside settle. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled, a reassuring gesture. I'll be here, one step at a time. Don't worry. And in that moment,